All right, it's loading.
And you're gonna
All
let people
right,
in. And you let me know when we're ready to start.
we're here. We're live.
We're live. Okay.
Yes.
How can you tell when people? Can you tell how many people are on? Or
I can't actually see how many people. I just see people chatting, but it's rolling technically.
okay.
Mm.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm glad you could get on. We can't see you, but we appreciate you being here. Um, I'm going to be your facilitator, your host for the evening. My name is Brian Favors, and I'm an educator in Brooklyn, New York, from Sacramento, California. I am the co-founder of Sankofa Community Empowerment, which is a nonprofit organization that works to empower people of African descent to change our condition through various educational programs. I'm also the co-founder of Breaking the Cycle Consulting Services, and we train teachers in cultural competence and work to create cultural studies programs in the schools. And then lastly, I'm the co-founder of the Nate Parker Foundation, which is an organization that uses film to inspire and empower young filmmakers to create stories that can change our condition and empower our community. So this whole topic that we're going to be talking about today, this film we're watching, is all a part of my work. So I just want to thank the writer and director of this film, Omo Pastor, just for allowing me to be a part of this, because this truly is a blessing. We were going to screen this at Weeksville Heritage Center, right in my neighborhood in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, which is a beautiful space. So we were really excited about that, and then Corona hit, and we had to adjust. But we are here, and we're really excited. And I have a special panel for you. We have Drew Drake, who is also the lead actor in the film, talented brother, and he's going to be joining us. You're going to be watching him in the film, and then he's going to be joining us on the panel after. And we got the brilliant Natalia Mills, who is an educator, just a priestess, just a dynamic sister. I've known her for a short time, but I already can feel the energy. So we're really excited. We got a special program for you tonight. Omo, do you want to add anything? I see you
Oh, I'm
working.
just thankful for everyone that's here so far. And as Brian said, this is a project that honestly I've been working on for a few years, and I finally was able to complete it in 2018. So I'm thankful for everyone who contributed, executive producers, Greg, and my sister, and everyone who also contributed throughout the film, like money wise, and all the actors and the cast and the crew. Oh yes, the crew. Thankful to everyone, and I'm just really happy to be here. And I really want to know everyone's thoughts as we move forward with the premiere. So I look forward to hearing back from everybody.
Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and do a kind of a little bit more of a formal introduction, and I'll let the others say just a quick word before we proceed. First of all, I met Oma. I met her in 2016 when she was a part of the Nate Parker Foundation. She was one of 30 students that applied for a really progressive program that we run out of Wiley College and HBCU in Texas. We bring 30 young filmmakers from all throughout the diaspora, actors, filmmakers, directors, cinematographers, producers, all throughout the country, even throughout the diaspora. We take 30 and put them through a cultural, what we call a Sankofa journey, through a rites of passage. And then they have to create their own film. They do all this in a week. And I met Omo there. She was a student at North Carolina A&T, another HBCU. She says the best, the number one public HBCU. So met her there. We had a really life-changing, powerful week, bringing all these young brothers and sisters from the diaspora, different economic backgrounds, different interests, but we made something together beautiful. And then about 6 months later, when she graduated, shortly after when she graduated, we were blessed because she came back to New York, where I'm an educator, and her and I have been able to do some work together as colleagues. We ran a film program at Brooklyn School of Music and Theater, working with the high school students, and it's just been a blessing. I look forward to working with her for a long time to come. She is a Nigerian American. Published storyteller of the African diaspora based in New York, Omo Pastor began her full-time career in storytelling through writing, photography, and film in 2016 after graduating with her bachelor's in English from North Carolina A&T. Her creative lens focuses on the intersection of gender, sexuality, emotion, and history while being of African descent in contemporary society. Her aim is to express the reality of African people across the globe. Her main theme and concern is to bring back the true sense of pride, a pride of being African despite geography, and to merge past and present to create a fluid future for Black people where they can breathe and just be. She uses their art to tell the world, especially African people, to just be that African, fearless, and prideful. So we are blessed, and thank you for bringing us all together. This is Omo Pastor. Right.
Thank you.
And then next we have the incredible Natalia Mills. And I'm not going to read all this because we'll be here for a long time because she's very accomplished. Trinidad and Tobago native Natalia Mills is Caribbean culture and costume historian, visual culture scholar, independent curator, art philosopher, Ian Nifa and Igun priestess, whose scholarly writings and research integrate aspects of the Caribbean history, Carnival art and philosophy, African, Afro-Caribbean, Yoruba philosophy with a central focus on identity, dress, body politics, and creolization. Wow. Natalia Mills is a professor of Caribbean Studies, Africana Department in Brooklyn College since 2016, and she has also taught history of the Caribbean and Western philosophy at the College of Staten Island. Okay, and that's just a little bit, but check her out. And as you'll see tonight, not just a bunch of titles, a spirited sister that has some serious insight. So, Omo, you definitely got the right person for the panel.
Definitely.
Critical topic. And then lastly, we got my brother who is the star of the film, powerful brother. I've seen him several times and watching it, and I just got a chance to meet him today. But Drew Drake is a world-traveled actor currently residing in New York City, growing up in places such as Brussels, Chicago, Germany, Fayetteville, Miami, Baltimore, and Alabama. Drew has learned to adapt to various cultures of constant change. His love for theater and acting began in college during his time at Elizabeth State University and HBCU in Eastern North Carolina. And this passion eventually led him to transfer to Western Carolina University to receive a BFA in theater. Since graduating from Western Carolina University in 2012, he has performed poetry in many venues throughout the U.S. Drew competed in both national and regional poetry slams, including Louisville, Soul Spit, Asheville Battle, New Eurekan Poets Cafe, Poetry, Bowery Poetry, the list goes on and on. He's an avid community writer and facilitator, creating and leading theater programs and writing workshops for young people across race and class. Drake is now an MFA acting graduate of the University of Tennessee, last seen in Folger Shakespeare Theater's production of The Winter's Tale, River and Rail Theater's production of the Unusual Tale of Mary and Joseph's Baby. And I could go on and on and on. So you can see we got a powerful group here. And again, it's a pleasure to be here. And, you know, we were talking about, as you heard in his bio, he is a poet, renowned poet. So I believe you're going to bless us with some poetry.
Yeah, I'm gonna bless you with a couple pieces right here.
We're gonna start it off to get us right, to get us in the mode.
Yeah, I got something for you.
Okay.
So I've been thinking a lot about just about being Black in America today, and we're thinking a lot about Arbery and Breonna's passing, and how we have such a fight as African Americans, Black people here in America. So this piece that I created is just talking about the lifespan of being Black in America, and sometimes it's ticking time bomb. So this piece is called Ode to Tiger King. Things I learned from the Gospel of Tiger King. When you hold a cub in your hands, you feel like God. You feel the rhythm of a world unfamiliar in your palms. You will hold this pride up like Simba and maybe even rock them to sleep. But once this cub loses its baby teeth, grows into the shoes of an adult. You realize the cub is more animal than angel, more dangerous than delicate, more target than toddler, and now our precious baby is a monster. Fangs as sharp as white fear, and the only way to protect yourself is by bullet or cage, because that's where all monsters belong, right? But I tell you, the prime time for cub petting is days after they come out of a black womb, and the moment they can open their mouths and speak. The moment when their vocal cords start galloping to freedom, or breathing in rebellion, or smelling all my fear, you gotta put them down. But make sure when you do it, when no one is watching. Do it in the thick of the night, when they sleep, or on a back road while they're jogging. Do it when there ain't no cameras around. You don't want these videos coming back to you. Sometimes I put on a costume. I grab a badge or a flag, call this law and order, a dish best served with company, a fellowship of brothers, just in case these tigers, they get out of control, because I'm all about protecting and serving my community too. And don't worry, not all tigers make it to heaven. Some just love cages, love building community behind bars, love their confinement and commissary too, love playing Simon Says, love lining up in single file lines in anticipation of food, love when I call them filthy animals, you filthy slave, or you filthy inmate. They love how I make magic of words, and I love how they can't even interpret the trick. And don't that make you feel like God? The power of holding life in your hand. The other day, I laid eyes on a new cub, a Gerber baby named Magnolia, as sweet as the flower, but still a cub who is yet to bloom. And now is the prime time to build your income, to squeeze her youth like coins. Because once this cub becomes a toddler, well, now the toddler is dangerous. And you know, it's time for you to start acting like God. Cool. So that's the piece that, thank you. It's a new piece that I'm working on, but really thinking about, I saw that the new Gerber baby is Magnolia, who's this African American, and it struck me as something of how there's a span of how long Black life is being beautiful here in America. And once it gets to a part in their life, then now I look at it as dangerous. So it's me thinking about even this child Magnolia as beautiful, and how as America's put on a pedestal, how long would that last in comparison to the amount of people who are dying that look like us daily? So that's a piece. But I'm gonna end. I got a second piece for y'all. I'm gonna end on a lighter note. We were talking in our previous discussion about food and how sometimes food can connect us to home and what home looks like, and how that is a different conversation for many of us in this diaspora, but it's very similar, right? And so this piece is called Soul Food, and I hope you enjoy it. When Granny passed, there was no one left to sprinkle love into our Sunday dinners. We sat around living room tables, stuffing our faces with memories of how she was able to slide all the season to the mac and cheese and them collard greens. We wondered, who gonna bring the cornbread now? Wondered whose turn was it take shots at dark walls like darts and try to make grandma's sweet potato pie again. The fried chicken, it lost its crunch in the end. We kept finding eggshells in our versions of this classic potato salad. It left our palates simmering on the question of what happened to the soul food, because we can't make it with Granny used to. You told me, baby, make sure you follow the recipe. So now I cook with cookbooks of our past conversations, because you told me that love and pain are sometimes too hard to write down. I didn't realize till now that you use your life experiences as your cooking instruments. When you taught me how to make mac and cheese, you said, first, baby, get you a deep bacon dish. A dish that could sustain high temperatures and come out the fire dancing. And I know you, so don't mess with the plastic. And when I think of you, you're nothing mere of a classic. A woman with a wide capacity of wisdom and understanding, and yeah, you've been burned a couple times. But you never wore those scars on your sleeves for the mass to see. You told me the next ingredient you need, elbow macaroni. So I ran and bought a couple of boxes. That pasta reminded me of times when grandpops used your faces with box and bag. It was sad how a pair of fish could constantly shatter the rain house of beauty God puts inside when he created you. You had rain gutters, clogged from macaroni street tears that dried on their own behind closed doors when the sun went down the piers. And just like mac and cheese, you said, but don't worry about your granddaddy. You know, we all got our layers. So don't forget that butter. See, you made it cool to be Southern. And us Southern folks know that butter is like God's miracle elixir to keep everything flowing together. When I started dating, you told me, don't get seduced by the Northern girl love potion called olive oil. I guess you a Southern bear who know butter is better. A girl who gonna cook and give you something to hold on to during the winter. And wintertime was known for grandma's snow cream right for those good old Sunday dinners. You had me comfortable. With sweet soups like warm soup on ice cold days, prefer Big Mama over that Campbell the soup. You often wanted Granny. How you a deaconess in this church and you know voodoo? I mean, how you had us in trance, but how you dance on this kitchen floor to a jazz band of ingredients and this family of musicians. You with a heartbeat, the drummer that kept everything consistent, but when you went missing, this family band, we fell apart. And we couldn't figure out what song we were playing. And we always wanted to be one band with one sound. But all I hear now is, baby, go back to the recipe. And it's funny. The last ingredient list is the cheese because it starts in the heart and you were the block that bleeds over everything. You brought consistency. You taught the other ingredients how to love, how to pray, how to breathe, how to stand after life gives you a blow to the face and find your way to keep on dancing. I will always remember your last answer. You will know your work is done when you get to see that melted golden cheese. So I become a master cooking soul food, as you can see. I'm constantly cooking all of Granny's favorite recipes, but it ain't about the food no more. See, I cook and I pray and I breathe just for one last second with all your famous memories. Ashe.
Go ahead, my brother. Okay. Well, thank you for those pieces. I think definitely great way to set the tone. We got a few more minutes, about 6:20, Omo, and I realized that they haven't heard anything from Natalia. Do you want to share a little bit? Do you want to say a few words and introduce yourself before we get into the film?
Real quick, sorry. Can we mute our mics when she starts talking? Just let us mute our mics because it was a lot of feedback. All right, cool.
Hi guys. I'm just really thankful to be here on this, on this panel and meet all of you amazing people. I saw the film obviously and I was like, this is so dope. Omo Pastor, we have been talking about it a little bit and I was really excited because I work at Weeksville as well. So it was something we were looking forward to doing, being there. So I'm happy to have technology to still continue to have the premiere and do the show, and just happy to have the conversation surrounding privilege and what it means, and how we navigate the spaces as Black people coming from different corners of the world, and what that really means. So I'm just really thankful that she picked me to be on the panel. One, and just to share and exchange, and just really hope that we leave with nuggets of information, and just kind of like keep us thinking, about how we're going to move forward just as a collective and individually. But I'm just really thankful to be here, to be honest. Like, I'm excited. Thank you.
All right. So, Omo, we are at 6:21. Do we want to go ahead and get ready to get started, or do we want to keep talking for a little bit? Do we want to give people time, trying to stick to this?
Yeah, we can give some people more time because it's going to actually premiere at 6:30, so it's already set for that. Yeah. So I'll use this time to just basically explain how this will work. So basically, if you're using your phone or if you're using your laptop, you can literally have the two tabs open where you're able to see the live stream of the actual conversation, and then you're able to watch the film on YouTube as well in a second tab when it premieres, which will be 6:30. If you're using your phone, those two links that I sent via email, basically you'll just go to the second link for the actual premiere of the film, which I indicated in the email, and you'll just simply open that tab up. And then once that is over, you can just come back to the tab of the live stream on the YouTube page so that you'll be able to join in the conversation or at least listen to the conversation. And if you have questions that you want to ask after you watch the film, please send it through the chat because we're seeing it here. And we would love to know your feedback and any question that you want us to touch on.
Thank you. So we have a few minutes, and just to talk a little bit about you, almost just as a filmmaker, and we're going to dig deep into it after they see the film. But maybe you can just talk about your aspirations of using film to cultivate these Pan-African connections, because it was some deep stuff you had in your bio. Very ambitious, and you talked about healing spiritually, emotionally. Talk a little bit about where that desire came from.
That's a good question. And basically it starts from me. Like, I'm born here, but my parents are Nigerian, and technically that makes me Nigerian, right? But oftentimes I just feel like I have to navigate through a space where I'm neither, like I'm just in the middle, and it causes a lot of an identity crisis, where it's like, okay, where do I really fit in? And where's my home, right? So for me, I started to realizing I had to break down certain ideologies and certain things within my culture and my tradition, and just growing up here, in order to really start to promote a certain mindset, and for me to gain understanding of who I am as an individual, and what my role in this life is as a creator. So the fact that I chose to be a creator, I'm thinking, okay, it doesn't sit well with me just to create stories or just to create music or anything that just is like, oh, for the, just for mainstream, or just so I listen to a lot of artists that pretty much have a message. So that has shaped my artistry very much so. Like Nina Simone, she also mentioned how, it's kind of a it's kind of a duty for the Black artist to literally talk about Blackness, to tell the stories of Blackness. And I know me and you, we've had a bunch of conversations of the importance of Black people telling our story, changing the narrative of this whole ideology that, oh, Black people looks this way, African people look this way, or if you're born in America, you're automatically this. If you're born on the continent, you're automatically this. If you're born in the Caribbean, you're automatically this. So just basically trying to really break down the stereotypes that, affect me in my everyday life, dealing with other individuals that come from different parts of the world. So the most important thing for me, I notice, is your spirituality. So if your spiritual aspect is not intact, your whole life literally is not going to be intact. So how can we create a space where you can create stories that's going to literally talk to the spirit of a person, to the heart of a person, because your heart got to be good in order for you to feel good. In order for you to do anything in life, you got to be healthy in the heart. Your emotions you got to know how to articulate emotions. You got to know how to actually feel your emotions, because we've been so desensitized as a people, we don't allow ourselves to feel. So through my art, I really feel as if I have to, just do it. And I don't even feel right if I'm not telling a story that literally can break down one or two issues that's going on within the Black community. And the whole point is, like, I just feel Black people have never really had the time to even heal, whether it's people on the continent, in the Caribbean, or in North America. No, Black people never got that time to literally heal. We've been fighting for generations and generations and generations, and even it's like we're in 2020, and a lot of the same things that generations during the 1960s they was fighting for, we still fighting for now. So it's always been a fight for us. It's never, wow, we could really sit back and really unpack and actually be and breathe, versus like, dang, we gotta really move. We're still being raised on survival versus like actually thriving in life. We don't teach our kids how to thrive in life. We don't teach our kids how to live. It's like, oh, you gotta make sure you do this and that to get to where you want. And because you have a lot of poverty in a lot of our neighborhoods, whether it's here or back home, those are the mindset of poverty is going to force us to be like, oh, you gotta do this and third. This is survival. Living is secondary. You just gotta survive. So pretty much the goal is to really be able to get people to start thinking and being more intentional about themselves and the life that they want to live, and really creating a space where they're able to actually breathe. Because I feel like a lot of people are just walking through life not even breathing, and they don't even know it.
So you brought up, man, you said a lot there, Omo. You said a lot. which is why I confess you're one of the people that one of my top picks coming into the Nate Parker Foundation, because you already had that spirit. One of our mottos is we use the Paul Robeson quote, and you spoke to it with Nina Simone: the artist must elect to fight for freedom or slavery. Period. We don't have the luxury of doing art for art's sake, or we shouldn't. When our people are in the Holocaust. Two of the books that were your mandatory reading, we had Brainwashed by Tom Burrell, which is a book I encourage you to see about how the media reinforces Black inferiority, and then a book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy, that really looks at the legacy of trauma. You talked about we never had the opportunity to heal. We got time for maybe one more quick question. Maybe you could explain, you brought up Nina Simone and we're talking about artists, but what do you think is unique about a filmmaker? What can you do? You talked about healing. How can a film kind of be a springboard for healing? What do you think about that? Film in particular?
That's another good question. Film, the history of film is like a lot. Okay, for instance, visuals attract more people. A lot of people may not really want to sit down and read or whatever, but if you see visuals, it's like automatically your mind is attracted to it once you see a certain image or anything of the sort. So as a filmmaker, you have the opportunity to really cultivate a whole story through visuals you can even do it without anybody even saying anything. They have silent films, but you can cultivate a whole story and get people to actually think. And then another part of like being able to really tell your story through film is you give people the opportunity to see themselves. And a lot of people don't even they may not even know that they don't know themselves. But when you see a film that relates to you in which you're able to relate to, you're more than likely to say, wow, hold on, I never even thought of my life like that. That is something I can relate to. Wow, it's so interesting how this artist broke this down. It's 6:30, so I'm gonna end it right here.
Right on time. You want to say anything before we load the film up? Is there anything you want to let the audience know? Anything you want to say?
Hey, just the only thing is have an open heart and clear eyes, and just watch this film with intention on learning something new. That's about it.
All right. Come on, Pastor.
All right.
Remember, if you have trouble seeing it, sometimes through these programs it might skip or be a little slow. Make sure you click the link and you click on, and you can watch it independently, and make sure you come back and join us for the conversation. You don't want to miss that.
Oh wow, what are you doing? All right, hold on, y'all.
What's good? What's good? What's good, dude? I expect to see you, bro. What's up, man? What's good? Doing good, yo. Yo, you heard about Shorty getting got by the boys last week?
Yeah, man, shit crazy out there. Niggas that not to start walking around strapped.
Shit don't matter. Police gonna get away with murder regardless. Shit, I'm thinking about moving my ass to Africa.
Wow,
What's funny?
nothing. Your comment was just somehow.
What's you mean?
Well, you say you want to move to Africa, like it's a country you can go to anyhow.
Okay, I don't get your joke.
Well,
Speak English. Negroes don't always want to start talking that click shit, nigga.
sure, all right, chap. You say you want to move to Africa. What am I yelling, idiot?
Speak English, nigga.
Hello, do not call me a nigga.
Oh, you too good to be a nigga? Nah. Talk your shit. Y'all come here for what? Y'all got all the energy to come here, but y'all ain't got nothing to connect with y'all people.
We people, my people care. My people are niggas.
Why are you trying to front and act like y'all ain't using nigga in Africa? You hear this boy? Shit. Nah, for real. Why'd you even come to America?
In this country, you people have privilege. But all you do is waste and waste.
This nigga said privilege. Black folks got privilege. Black folks in America, nigga, we still waiting on our 40 acres and a mule. What?
One more.
God, chill out, bro. Every time you come here, you start some shit like, you see this line, I got mad people I need to cut. Change the topic, bro.
Anything that was say now, can never take back. You want thunder. They will say you never make it. Oh my God, just to your own. They always gonna undermine you until the fame and money go. Anything that was say now, can never take back.
Ah, mommy mi. Ẹ káàárọ̀.
Hey, ọkọ mi. Báwo ni?
Ah, fine ma.
Àwọn ẹbí ẹ̀ ń kọ́.
Báwo ni gbogbo nǹkan?
Àròjù ẹ̀ lé.
The store looks good though.
Well, adúgbò lọ́wọ́ náà.
Yes, mommy, ṣé ọṣẹ dúdú ṣì wà?
Ó wà.
Spot though. Abo, yeah, mama.
Hey, my son. How are you?
I'm good.
You don't even ask of me now.
Oh, mama, I've been busy. But I brought you some new customers, though.
That's right. How are you?
This my man's Tone, my man's Dre. Mama, they need you. They both got ashy ass Yo. Cocoa butter. It's all you. Catch your name on the shit. Yeah. I mean, I'm dry as ankles. Look at that. Wow, the audacity. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right.
I gotta wait to get the breakfast. Tell me really can you help me now? I really owe you. Cause all these people going on. They want some.
That look very
They want some.
Now you're. Wow. Shots fired. Shots on fire over here. Yo, bro.
Yeah, okay, ma. Ṣé ma láǹfààní yẹn?
Ó mọ̀ dáadáa. Ọmọ mi. Wọ́n ló wà lóyún.
Láì gbọ̀gbọ́ yẹn, ó ti ní gbéra jù. Ó lè máa sọ, ọ̀rẹ́ rọ́bìṣì jáde ló máa sọ. Iṣẹ́ àwọn ọbẹ̀ ọmọ akátá ìṣeré náà.
No. Má sọ̀rọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ ni o láìpẹ́. Bíṣọ̀ ọmọ akátá. Ọmọ dáadáa ni, he's a good boy. Don't worry.
Ókè, mo ti gbọ́n ilé ní gbogbo ẹ̀.
$14.
Ma, you need to play some Hove up in here.
Fela is home.
You funny, ma.
Okay.
All right, hold on.
Yo, later, bro.
My name is Adetoro.
Yo, what's good with your man, Z? Man, F that nigga with his long ass name. My name is Adetoro. Can't even pronounce that shit.
Rashad, I don't like that. That's not good.
No, mom, but man's got me tight, man.
Do you even know what his long ass name means? You see, our names have meaning. Your own name has meaning. That is your brother.
I know. But you need to tell him that. He acting like he better than us. America ain't that sweet for us. Shit, and we built this.
It's like our Yoruba people always say, and Tolori Konifila, and Itonifila Kolori. We all need each other.
I hear you, man.
Carry on.
Yo, y'all good?
Get this coconut oil right here. Yo.
Man, come on.
You got 5?
Nigga, come on, I got you.
So why did you enjoy so fast? These things you kick so well.
Both got no privilege. Background after background, a little more access to the facts now.
Yo. Turn it up. Listen to these words, boy.
Yo. Different circles like pair and contrast. We are the same like in the space in the middle.
The boy just said we see in 2 different circles like compare contrast. We all the same like the space in the middle. If you ask, all of us look like him. Some of us wearing masks.
Put some truth on this track. That second verse fire. That's what it is.
Ronnie Brown from Queens.
Shit makes sense.
Remember who put y'all on now? You know, man. You know. Hey, I'm about to run to the store. Y'all need anything? You good?
I'm good, man. Good, bro.
All right.
That'd be easy.
Pants worked hard for this. Late night stood up and starved for this. Dreaming of a land that's free. That bargaining.
Man, let me talk to you. Yo, why you acting like that, bro?
Yo, boys. Stop.
You all have ID?
Here we go. ID.
Both of you.
All right. Turn around. Hands to the wall. Right now.
Come on, man.
Please, what did I do? Spread your legs. What did I do? Spread your legs.
Yo, okay.
It's clean.
Yeah. Him too.
Let's go.
Hands up, please don't shoot. I know my blackness ain't enough, but I am human too. It's my life with less than yours, so please tell me why. Cause at night I bet you shed the same tears I cry.
Welcome to America, bro.
I cry. I cry just like you. I cry just like you. I cry.
All right. We back? Back, Omo? Clap it up, clap it up, clap it up, clap it up. Finally got a chance to see yourself. Drew, this is the first time you seen it?
Bye.
Yeah, bro. It's the first time seeing it, man.
Yeah, how was it?
First time
yourself?
seeing it. How was it? Yo, it was cool. It was really interesting to see like all the ports come together, right? You know, like because I've seen like little like stills of different scenes, but to see it all together was like really beautiful. And it was kind of cool of like, there were certain things I didn't even catch. Like I mean, like things at like the end, the last barbershop, or just moments where we were on the set doing it, I didn't see the vision of how it's gonna all come together. So it was really beautiful to see that.
Nice. And hopefully the viewers had a chance. I know it was skipping a little bit on my computer, and I've had the opportunity to see it independently without the skip. So if you did stay with us and it did skip for you, I want to encourage you to check the link out. Will they have an opportunity, Omo, on their own to check it out? Or is that only right now?
Yeah, it will still be there for now for probably today and tonight and then tomorrow.
Because I want you to, I want you to make sure you get the full effect. Hopefully, I know some of you probably clicked on to watch it right now. If it was a little slow for you, but I just want to, let's give it up for Sister Omo. Let's give it up. Let's give it up. Let's give it up. If you're at home, what's that, about a 10-minute film? A 10-minute film, a lot of work. A lot more than 10 minutes goes into making a 10-minute film. I know.
Thanks.
So I want to congratulate you, sis. You've been working on this for a long time, and it's just good to see the full manifestation of your ideas. I think you came up with the idea when you were at MPF years back or shortly after. And I just want to start by asking you, and I think just from the introduction, we kind of get a feel of what your purpose is, but what was it that made you want to tell this particular story? What was it?
All right, just like you said, I came up with the idea at MPF, and I was actually having a conversation with another of the students there, and he's from Zimbabwe. So we were having a conversation about this idea that Black people here, their privilege compared to those back on the continent. So that kind of, just breaking that whole conversation down, and then just also often hearing different issues or points from both sides growing up and everything. So I just felt like it would be a good story to tell, to give a different perspective of what each side may feel, or, what each side may go through. So even though I didn't go as deep, I wanted to just touch on different points in order for viewers to see, okay, I can see that, I can understand that, I can see that happening. And overall, the point of it all is to say, whether you from Haiti, whether you're from Zimbabwe, whether you're from Nigeria, whether you're from Ghana, when you come to America, Americans, people, they're going to see you as Black. So you are Black here, and you're literally Black throughout your life, but some people don't notice it until they step foot in America. So the life of Black people in America is very important for people that come from different countries to understand, especially if you're a Black immigrant, so that you'll know the history of the people. So you will understand that, okay, they're not just what the media has been portraying or what people may say, Black Americans are. You'll understand, like, oh, they're this way, or their life appears this way because of the history, because of what they've been through, because of the struggle and the fight that they constantly been having to go through throughout their generations and even till now. So the story is just definitely like a topic just to, I guess, to start off with, like with my film career. I just thought it was just something that I could relate to and able to really break down through my own insight. So that's what inspired me.
So it's interesting as you're talking, I'm thinking about the privilege you have of being able to have that understanding of both worlds, which is something that a lot of us don't have. And I think that's what's unique about your role. So when you wrote it, there's a dialogue in there where he's talking about, and I've seen this a lot as an educator, y'all got it easy, y'all come here and da-da-da-da-da, you don't have it like the African-American Black man. And then on the other side, man, if we didn't get education for free where I came from, y'all got all those opportunities. In your mind, who's the privileged one in this?
The film technically is the white person, the white people. White people are the ones that are privileged in this land. But we all have parts of privileges within our life. But the overall spectrum, white people are the landowners of this country. So those are the people who are privileged. I mean, it could be white people that's not even from America. They still deal with the white privilege. And white privilege is what is the basis of the issues that are going on within the Black community and just what Black people face. So that's, to answer your questions, white people.
Okay, so which is kind of the point. The point is here we arguing over who has it better, who has it worse.
Right.
And the ending kind of showed you we're both in the same place, and
Right.
both of us are oppressed, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna move on to you, Brother Drake, because first of all, I want to tell you did a great job, man. It was I think you killed that role. You did your thing. And my question to you is, what was it, you know, when Omo came to you about this and shared the idea with you? I know you're a busy man, you got a lot going on. What was it that attracted you to this role?
Oh man, I love the story. I'm really right now in my career, I'm just interested in doing Black centered art, like as period, right? And so I think this is a topic that definitely needs to be talked about, because I can see the tension. You know, I mean, there's certain moments where there's such a friction that is happening with things that we've learned over time, right? Like people have a certain mindset, and that's passed down from someone. So when we're able to have these types of art that are facilitators of conversation, and we can get to the root of things, that's the stuff that I'm interested in. So once when we hit me, I was like, oh yeah, you send me the script. I was like, I'm in. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So, and also like there was so much that I learned specifically in doing this film too. Like there was so many things of like, one of my like favorite experiences was, I think it was maybe like the first night, and we were eating after we had wrapped, and just the conversation about food was like, that was like one of the moments where I was like, yo, like there at times, because I'm me being African American who's raised primarily in the South, but like have a lot of family roots in the South, and so I call myself a Southerner, and having an idea or mindset about the African diaspora, like I was like, oh well, you know, that I don't know different folks outside of America, Black, you know, and so when I was there and we were able to just break bread and talk about like where we were coming from and like talk about different family history and how it's not so much of like, I thought it was so separated, but it's not. And so just to see the similarities between people, and that was one of the experiences that I always remember with this project.
And Natalia, I'm going to move on to you, our educator, our education specialist on the panel. And I just want to bring it to you because, you know, this is all a movie about kind of our schizophrenia and our identity crisis as it pertains to people of African descent. And I know you're an educator, and just in going through your bio, you know, this is what you do. You work with young people and help them to kind of explore these issues of our African identities. And you're also from Trinidad. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, you know, not only what interested you in this project, because I think that's pretty evident why you were interested in it, but just from an educational perspective, why is it so important that we educate ourselves and understanding each other, and just understanding the whole immigrant, not even the immigrant, I would just say the Black experience as a whole, because all of us are away from our homes here. All of us are dealing with colonialism, slavery. Why, from an educational standpoint, is this so important? And how have you seen maybe even some of these confrontations manifest themselves in your work? Uh-oh, you got to unmute. Are you muted?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So this film was so packed for me on so many different levels because I understand the immigrant experience, being an immigrant myself. So I could actually relate to the African gentleman, you know, coming and even like making fun of, oh, when you come here, you're hearing the click, click, because I don't always sound like this, right? So like in 8th grade, I'm trying to like assimilate and try to sound American because people are like, what'd you say? Like they're making fun of my accent. Or like, you know, just trying to like feel like when you first come, you do feel like it's privilege, right? Because you're seeing the Americans and they have all these cool things, and you kind of want to fall into that. But then as you know, I think time for me definitely, I remember being younger and trying to be American really quickly. So that way I can kind of like fall in and not have to like navigate these uncomfortable spaces. But then as I got older, I kind of phased out of that and kind of understood my identity through education and all that. And I kind of ended up becoming real Caribbean again. Right. So
that's deep.
That was one of the, you know, like I kind of like switched back, like, oh no, I don't need to be trying to be American because this is who I am, and and that was all through education and learning histories and understanding what happened in America, why the stereotypes even exist, and just kind of navigating that and having a bigger understanding of who I am, where I'm from, the space that I'm in, the people that are in the space, and actually having a lot of empathy for all of us, because at the end of the day, we're all put against each other, right? And it's all just nonsense at the end of the day, because your accent doesn't stop you from getting arrested. Where you're from doesn't stop you from getting arrested or being shot or whatever, even none of that. So for me, education is very important. And this happens, and you asked about in my work. So like in classrooms, especially, I have the very uncomfortable conversations because we need to have them, right? So I teach Caribbean studies, so it's more on the Caribbean side, but I'm in the class with African Americans and Caribbean people, first generation, second born, whatever. And it's always heated debates. But by the end of the semester, I feel really good because they all walk away with a different perspective. So I pitch things at them. So let's talk about stereotypes. And African Americans will say, you Caribbean people come here and you think you're better than us and this or the third. And, then I'll be like, all right, so what do Caribbean people think? And then we'll go back and forth through the class about these things. And then we'll just really talk about what's really happening here, right? I'm like, remember before, as a Caribbean person, I'm telling the African American students this. We've worked really hard in the Caribbean to create a culture, to have this creolized understanding of self and identity and these things. So we hold on to that very tightly. So when you move to the United States, you don't get rid of that, right? But a lot of times it comes across as, we think we're better, or we think we're not American, or we think, just differently. But it's just like you're holding on to what you've grown up in and what you've been seeing. And then I asked the American students, so if you move to England, do you become a Black Brit automatically? Do you forget all your Southern, or whether we're from West Coast, East Coast, wherever, Southern, do you forget all of that because you moved to England? You don't become a Black Brit overnight. You still hold on to your culture, right? But that's all through having these conversations and talking about what's really happening. And the immigrant experience, and even with students in the classes that aren't Caribbean or African American, they're going through the same things, right? Whether you're Polish or Italian or Asian, like they're going through the same kind of immigrant stories and experiences. So I think education is really important, just talking about it, having the conversations and realizing that we are all children of Africa. We just ended up in different spots. The boat just took us different places. Mm-hmm. And now we're just, we're just here now. Because, typically we are Black people.
Right.
And I tell my students too, the Caribbean students especially, we talked about like identity and like this schizophrenia and politics of home and where is home and what is home. And, it's kind of almost like you see with African-American students, sometimes they're like, oh, but you guys have the opportunity to go back home. So that's a privilege, right? Right? Because we don't have to stay here. But then at the same time, these Caribbean people are having children here, and this is home now, right? So now you have to still, even though you're Caribbean, invest in this space now, because this is where you're living now. So, just having those conversations and just educating yourself about what's really happening, and also just realizing that there are power in numbers, and this structure is set up for us to be divided constantly. So if we could push past that and really, think about what's really happening and just learn each other. And when you look at the end of the day, we're all eating the same things. We're all doing, the music is the same. They all come from the same place. It just has different seasoning based on where you're from, different whatever, but it's all the same. You know what I mean?
And it's interesting.
We're all dancing the same, it might be twerking here and something else in Africa and something else in the Caribbean. And we're all doing the same things, right? So focus more on the commonality versus the divide, but that's just kind of what we've been programmed to do. And especially immigrants coming to the United States, you're kind of like put against African Americans from the jump.
Right.
So you're coming like, I don't want to be African American, like, because they see on the TV, they see on the news, they see what's happening to African Americans. They've been hearing all these things, so they're like, I don't want to be associated with that. But that's, like, again, if you understand what's really happening and understanding the system, you can push past that and just really us come together and do the work that needs to be done.
And it's interesting because I think the end of the movie kind of is that point. Here, they're fighting about divisions, and the police officer didn't know who was from Africa, who was African American. Right. In his mind, he saw the same threat: Black folks.
And it didn't matter. It didn't matter where you're from.
Right. I know we have a few questions from the audience, but before I get to that, Natalia, you brought up some really interesting points about how we're conditioned right off the bat, we're divided. My friend from Haiti, one of my closest friends, he talks about when he got here, they used to call him HBO, Haitian body odor. So right off the bat, the people who were the most hurtful to him were African Americans. And I know from an African American perspective, from the time we're little, we have all these misconceptions about Africa and Haiti and all these other places, and we're the bottom. So sometimes when somebody else comes in, we're just looking at, kicking the weakest person in the room, even though we've been kicking each other all day. You light, you dark, all these divisions. So let's talk about this real quick, and Omo, you can jump into this before we take some questions from outside. Where do these misconceptions that divide us, where do they come from? We talk about the perceptions that we have about one another. We talk about the power of us being able to talk and heal and educate ourselves. Who is cultivating these misconceptions, and where do they come from?
Honestly, the colonizer, right? I mean, we can go back and look at cartoons about the American South just being lazy and having these, laying around, like you see all these perceptions of, just negativity, and that has come from the colonizer, right? And I always feel I have a different feeling for African Americans, because I'm like, wow, being from the Caribbean, we were able to push the colonizer out. African Americans are still living in the space with the colonizer, so it's like you're still in the belly of the beast, right? So that's like a real thing. You've never been able to escape that. We've governed ourselves in the Caribbean. So it's different. So you're seeing all these stereotypes. You're hearing all these things. You're hearing Caribbean girls are fast and they like to whine and they like to this, and you're hearing, American girls are this and that. But that all comes from, pinning us against each other, right? Like I remember even in the Caribbean, like, certain indentured servants would come in, don't integrate with the Africans, don't do this, don't do that, because they're bad, they're better. And it's such a complex system, because even if you look at how it's broken down, there's a disparity between English speaking, Spanish speaking, French speaking. Depending on who your colonizer is too, you might even have a better chance, right? So like if England is your colonizer, you have a better chance in America being educated because you're the better Negro, right? Or it's just like it's all these things. The system has just been feeding us crap, and we've been, obviously, like how can African Americans be lazy when they built America?
Right.
How?
For free.
Right. That's just how. Right. How are Caribbean people, docile and they're the nice Negro when we've been having revolutions from the beginning of time. From the time we got there, we've been shutting it down. Right. So how? Right. I even when I go to Africa and I'm in Lagos in the airport and they're looking at me like, were you going to these traditionals and you have spiritual beads on and you practice African spirituality? I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, how do you know about that? I said, well, you should know about that. You live in Ocean State. You should know about Orisha and all these. Like, why don't you know? But we've learned these things through the colonizer and what we've read and what they've told us to know about ourselves. And it's unfortunate. So now we have to unlearn all of that. But then it's generational, right? Because grandma's been telling you this. Everyone's been telling you. So you have to really see for yourself and really push against that. Like when I'm having the thought, like remove it, or teaching my children, this is really what it is, and just trying to break that cycle. But we've learned it through just the power structure.
Right. You got anything to add, Omo, to that?
Yeah, that was beautifully said. And basically just really to piggyback off of what Natalia spoke on, a lot of it is literally just what has been promoted via media or just what have been promoted it's mainly through media, because that's how we often see each other, and just a lot of things that have been internalized. So one thing that one of my elders have told me before, rest in peace, what he told me before is like we as Black people, we allow other people to tell us about ourselves. And it's so interesting that that point was made to me, because it's like we allow people to tell our narrative. We say, oh, Trinis are this way, Nigerians are this way, Black Americans, they're this way. But it's like majority of your life you live with these people, and yes, you see points of these stereotypes like in certain sectors or certain points of your life, but it doesn't make up 100% of your people. And we've internalized all of that, with whether it be about ourselves or about another group. The fact that a lot of us may not be intentional about learning other cultures or other people, we often say, "Oh, I don't want to deal with them because they're this way." But if I chose to speak to Natalia, she's gonna teach me something about Trinidad that I definitely don't know, and that I don't know about Trini people. But you have to make that choice to go and actually go and learn about these people, or go even just speak to somebody, because one stereotype doesn't make up the whole group. And it was also to the point that you had mentioned, like, we've been at the bottom so bad, and it just all over. You see how Africa as a whole is portrayed to the world as if it's a land of just poverty, and that's not even the case. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of poverty there, and people have that whole mindset that's there. And then people here, there's a mindset of being at the bottom. So now we both low-key at the bottom in a sense, and we just really trying to step on each other to get to the top. And that also speaks into the whole divide and the internalization of the hatred of ourselves, because overall we're one people. So I think that definitely is what has contributed, like definitely the media, because people can sit here and tell me Black Americans are this or Nigerians are that, and they could have never like met any Black Americans or never met any Nigerian people, but it's what they heard or what they saw. And it's like, oh wait, hold on. Huh? You said?
No. Sorry, I was agreeing. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So it's like, you probably, even if you met any, your percentage of how many people you met is not valid enough for you to even say this is how all of them are. So your generalization is weak because you don't know 100% of one group. You might not even know 50%. So you cannot generalize. And that's what we often do as a people. Like, we generalize based off of what we've heard and what we saw. And if we see one person emulate that negative stereotype, we automatically assume that's just how they all are.
So you brought up crabs in a bucket, and I remember when I was little, my grandma told me Black people are like crabs in a bucket. One tries to climb up, and they pull them down. And that was something that she told me when I was young. But I got older, and I started studying colonization and slavery, and I realized crabs don't belong in a bucket.
Right.
So when you take crabs and put them in a natural habitat,
they never belong.
Stephen Biko has a quote that I love. He says, "The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed." So even as we're talking about these divisions, when I was young, my imagery of Africa, if you'd have called me African when I was 10 years old, I'd have been ready to fight you. I'd have rather been an N-word because of my miseducation, right? So we see these things are coming at us, and we all have Black skin, and it's competitive, but we inherit this burden that a lot of times we just don't have a context for understanding. That's why I'm in agreement with Natalia and give my life to the education of African people. But you had a really a powerful. In the end, Drew, you had a comment. You said when the police rolled up on both of you, you guys are kind of going back and forth over your issues, but then you told him, "Well, welcome to America," and I thought that was significant. And maybe you and Omo could talk a little bit. Usually when you see the African American story, the African American is more the villain. Even when you see Black Panther, someone could argue we definitely had empathy for Killmonger because we could relate. That was some great writing. But he was the African American who was going to tear it all down. Like, it's oftentimes the African American is the villain. And when I watched this film, Drew, your character, even though you guys both have, the click, you got some jokes too. Y'all going both at it. The fact that you started off saying, "I want to go to Africa." You went to the shop, the African space, and you brought your boys. So we can definitely see that you kind of have that fire, and it seems like you're more open, even when you tell Ma, like, "Well, you got to tell him that. I've been trying to be his brother, but he don't even want to be." Maybe you can speak a little bit to why you chose to kind of villainize, if you will, the African, and more so than, because when you told me about the script, and I remember you talked about it before, I thought it was going to be back and forth. Football is this, no, football is this, and kind of even. But when I watched it, I said, well, Drew, he's a little more grounded than the other brother from some perspectives, at least in this snapshot. Why did you choose to do that?
It's basically the fact of the matter that a lot of images that we've seen about the Black American is negative and as if they're not trying to get to know their roots. But we often forget how the role that Black Americans here, like even in New York or just like in the South, play in, you know, trying to get more awareness to apartheid in South Africa and just different things, different roles that Black Americans have played in trying to unite Africa or trying to unite people here to get them to understand that they're African. So I wanted to really touch base on that. And also we live in contemporary society now. A lot of people is going back to their roots. A lot of people is going back to whether it's Yoruba spirituality or just the fact that, oh, wow, my natural state. A lot of people is going back to that. And oftentimes within that argument, that, you know, that journey, they come in contact with people from the continent or mainly from the continent that give them pushback saying, oh, what do you know about this? What do you know about that? And it's like, oh, I may not know everything, but I'm trying to learn. And they don't see that they're trying to learn. A lot of them don't see that they're trying to learn. So I wanted to really put the Black American in a different light from the typical, oh, thug, womanizer, that type of energy that's often portrayed with the Black man, especially. So I wanted to put the Black man in a light where it's like, okay, I'm tired of where I am because of all the brutality and all the violence I'm surrounded by, whether it's within my own people or just from police officers who's set to protect and serve, right? But the only place that I feel that I would be comfortable is to go back to somewhere in Africa, you know, to go back to the continent, because that's the only place that in my mind as the Black American is, oh, they look like me, so they're going to be more accepting of me.
Yeah.
And the whole idea that we really often see, like definitely Black Panther really made me realize, wow, why does Killmonger have to be the villain though? Why does he have to be the angry person and there's no breakdown of why, a full breakdown of why he's so angry, rather than, you know, he got his father got killed and all of that. But I wanted to really put Black Americans and the Black man into a totally different light where it's like, all right, they grew up in these neighborhoods, but they still read, they still have education, they still learning about themselves, and they still want more for themselves. It's not just, oh, this is all I know and I'm just gonna live my life like that. No, he's in a barbershop, and in the barbershop in Black communities, that's the space for Black men. And you know, now, you know, we're going to get our haircuts. I used to have a low cut, so I used to be in there. See you, Natalia. But it's naturally it's a space for Black men, and that's where they talk about different things. The first thing Rashad said when he entered the space was, yo, he greeted everybody. He was like, yo, y'all heard about Shorty that got by the police last night, right? And that aspect, the fact that I wrote that to open up the film in a sense, is really to prove that he's tired. You know, he's not, this is something that's going on in his community that just keeps happening and keeps happening. And then that led to the whole conversation of, you know, it doesn't matter whether you walk around strapped or not, whether you protect yourself, whether you are licensed, whether you have a gun or not, it does not matter. Police are still going to get away with murdering Black bodies. And that aspect is like, wow, Black Americans are actually really, you know, they're doing the work, and they've been doing the work to educate themselves and to educate others around them, saying, okay, I'm not happy with what's going on. The other option is to really just leave, because my generations, my great-great-grandparents, they've been fighting for something that even me today in 2020, I'm not benefiting from. So the only option is to leave, to go somewhere you don't even know about. But you feel like because it's a land of Black people, you're just gonna be welcomed with open arms, and that's better than dealing with the violence that you're dealing with in your everyday, right?
Right, and it's yours. If you're not welcomed with open arms, it's almost like if you found out you were adopted, but then not even adopted, you were stolen, right?
Right.
It would be natural, even if you didn't know your biological parents, to feel a connection because they're yours.
Right.
And they didn't throw you out. you got captured. Drew, you know, there was a question.
Just to add to that, I just want to add is like, I think the beauty of what I loved about the script and just how Umu wrote it was just like taking the first place that we see the characters at as a barbershop, and what that means in the Black experience. Like, what is the barbershop representative of? And sometimes a space of conversation, but also it could be a space that's for performative masculinity, right? It's almost like a hyper masculinity that comes out in a barbershop. And then to transition from that and go to Mama's spot, where Mama is able to educate somebody, like that was like a very like opposite vibe, you know what I mean? And it was a beauty of showing someone who can come from one place, but then also go to another place and be willing to learn and be willing to let go of things that have been taught to them over time in certain spaces. And that was something that I really like. I didn't even tell you about that, but that was like one of my favorite things of seeing it, was seeing the transition and how people can show up in different spaces, but also how they can learn from each other in different spaces, right? So that was something.
Drew, you made a dope connection, because I was just thinking when she originally made it, we were gonna have their confrontation happen in a classroom with the professor, and I was gonna be the professor, and they were gonna be kind of going back. And then she decided to do it at a barber shop. But then when she decided to go to that store, you just made me think, you know, what does the barber the barber say when they start arguing first? Change the topic.
Change the topic.
Whereas Ma, it's like, that's your brother. like she brings forth some healing. So I just think actually that speaks to Mama Africa and just that motherly spirit. That is often that balance. We kind of miss that balance. You know, I think about the barbershop. Barbershops are powerful spaces. I had to stop going to my barbershop here in the hood. Well, on this one right by my house, because I couldn't bring my son in there because it was so much hyper masculine negativity. It was so much negativity that we had to like decompress after we left. And I didn't want it to be bougie and not be able to be with the people. But then I had to start going to the Muslim barbershop just because, you know, every other word wasn't a curse word. It just was a safer place for my son's identity development. So I think that's really powerful. But for you, Drake, somebody had asked,
be a place where like it's almost like thinking about you think about like dog fighting, right? And there's been times where like I've been in barbershops and it's been so like dog eat dog. You know what I mean? Like there's so like a back and forth, like a almost like, you know, not even looking at each other as people, but looking at each other like, how can I do you one better, right? And so that is something of like, I really appreciate also like having a barbershop to be able to showcase how this space can show up and be helpful or not helpful.
Depending on who's there. I mean, they got programs now in Brooklyn where they put away video games. There's this research that says if Black boys are introduced to Black books through Black males, they're more likely to read. So even some barbershops here in Brooklyn have took out the video games and have instilled books. And then they have these programs. If your grades are so good, you get to go to the Nets game. But just to be, you know, a lot of times you sit in the barbershop for 2-3 hours. If you got men in there that are having male conversations, just like sometimes I'll be in the barbershop and we talk about Malcolm and breaking it down, and I can have some gang kids in there, but they're watching 5 Black men, and now, you know, they're forced to be a part of that energy. But Drew, somebody had asked a question, does Black, and I think, you know, looking at your bio and seeing you've lived in Miami, Chicago, you said you're from the South, but you're here in New York, and maybe you can be the first one to answer this. Does the Black American privilege change whether you live in the South or the North? You feel like that makes any difference?
I don't think so. I mean, I think there is, I want to say definitely New York is a definitely different experience. Of course, when you get to a metropolitan area where you have a culmination of different communities coming together. So New York is very different, but I don't know. I don't know if it's different from the North to the South. I think there is in certain places in the South, there's less ability to have conversations. Like there's less like open spaces or forums where people can openly talk about different communities and different cultures in the diaspora. So that's my little 2 cents on it. But that's a really good question.
You Black in the North, and I'm in agreement. What do anybody got anything to add to that? That was a question from the audience. Go ahead, Natalia. Oh, you're muted.
I guess talking about like New York too is a very special space, but I actually feel like in the South, you actually can deal with it on a more honest and raw level because it feels like racism and segregation and these things are almost kind of like falsified, like they're kind of like made to not exist in places like New York, or it's like, you know, like it almost isn't there, but it is, right? But in the South, to me, it feels like you're more, you see the racism, you see it, you understand it, you know it's there, you can see it, right? But in New York, it's almost like a false understanding of what's really happening. And I feel like even though it's a great experience to be in a metropole like New York, but it also is a false reality, you know, because please don't get it twisted. Like you know, the New York City schools are more segregated than the ones down south, probably, if you really think about it, when you look at communities and neighborhoods, right? Like, though no one from the Upper East Side is going to school in Brownsville.
No.
Or you can't get there just based on zoning and these things. So New York City schools are probably the most divided in the United States, or one of them at least. So I just think, like, I don't need people assume, like, we assume that there might be a privilege in the North and the South. I actually feel like you get it raw and realer in the South because it's there.
Right. Which isn't necessarily a privilege. You know? It's a different, but you like, you know.
But you could attack it differently. Right, in New York, people are like, well, why are you talking about this? We're fine here. We're great. We all love each other. What are you talking about? It's cosmopolitan. It's amazing, right? You almost can't have the conversation here,
right? Because you on the train with white people, people assume that everybody is. We're all on the train together. We're diverse.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, you stopping in the hood, they stopping on Wall Street.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think that was a great question. Omo, you have something to add to that?
Yeah, it's just really also just to add to the points that everybody says. It's in New York, it's just up north. We more so hustling and bustling. We don't have time to worry about a lot of things that people down south may even just have time because just of the way that it's set up. You know, I lived in North Carolina for like 3 years of my life, and I was able to really see, oh, wait, hold on. This is really the South. Like, people are really out here, really trying to, like, the segregation, you see it. And you see it here, too, if you pay attention. But you see it in the South, regardless if it's 2020 or 1968. It has changed because of, you know, gentrification and everything of that sort. But you see it. I remember my school is on East Greensboro. That's the hood. Automatically you know that's the hood. And then the other, one of my homeboys, he went to UNCG, which was on more so West Greensboro, and that's where white people mainly live. So you see the dynamics, but the fact of the matter is, because things are more relaxed and more slower at a slow pace down south, you're able to really understand that, okay, this is going on, this, that, and the third is going on. This is like up north, everybody's hustling, especially in New York. Everybody's hustling. Whether you live in Brownsville, you may work in Manhattan, and you know, you often always come in contact with different people of different races, different cultures and everything, but you're hustling, and then you go back home. So you don't really have too much time to really sit down and think about the state of the world, or you choose not to, because it's like, okay, if I'm not at work, I'm probably at home sleeping because I'm working 2 or 3 jobs to pay my rent. Right.
Okay. So we got another question. Someone asked, with the climate of the world, we should all be considering what the reunification of Africa means for the diaspora today. How do you see us coming together, being so far apart? You know, we talk about it, talking about going home. How realistic is that? Some of you, I know a lot of people, I didn't get a chance to go, went to Ghana for last year for the 400 years in the welcome home and all of that stuff. But I think that's a good question. With all of these divisions, you know, what does that mean for the reunification of Africa? And how do you guys see us coming together? Any of you can jump in. Go ahead, Natalia.
Okay, so, yeah, I'll say through education, right? Like, I always sit down and think about, even if we can't go to Africa, but I wonder sometimes, like, what does African syllabus look like when it comes to like Black history, or like what are we learning here about them, right? Like, when I was growing up in the Caribbean, I knew about all of the islands that I was surrounded by. I knew what their imports were, exports were, everything. So we understood the space that we were in, even though we were different. So I'm wondering if education can be the link, even if we might not encounter each other some might not be able to go on a trip, or somebody might not go to the Caribbean or whatever, but we live in the United States, and more than likely we will encounter the other, right? The other type of Black. So I think, but if we're educated beforehand, or we could kind of get a handle on it, then it'll be a different experience when we do have the opportunity to have those encounters. But I definitely think that education is probably one of the biggest things, and then unlearning what you've learned.
Right.
And just like you have to unlearn the nonsense, and then really like dig into what is the truth, like where is the truth, what is the truth. But I think education might be the best in this, to me as an educator, obviously, to kind of help break that, because I've seen what is done in classrooms, I've seen what is done in conferences, I've seen what is done in books, right? And they say that one of the biggest things, they said if you want to hide something from a nigga, put it in a book, right? So we need to read, we need to ask questions, right? Don't just take what they tell us. Because if you think about it, we live in an oppressed state. Do you think our school systems and the textbooks or stuff are built for us to know?
Right.
No, they tell us what they want us to know, right? So now we have to look past that and dig a little deeper to try to understand the other Black.
So she talks about education, and that's such a schizophrenic word, because the kind of education that Natalia is teaching, the kind that I've been blessed to be able to do in certain spaces, is counter to the indoctrination that a lot of us get. I always tell my students, you can't even let school interfere with your education, because oftentimes you're not going to learn about Marcus Garvey, you're not going to learn about any of our Pan-African leaders. Matter of fact, you're not even going to know what Pan-Africanism is, because that's never going to be in your curriculum unless you're blessed to go to Caribbean studies and to get into college and to get into Africana studies and whatnot, which eliminates the majority of us, right?
Like I tell a lot of my students are like, why didn't I know about Marcus Garvey and Shirley Chisholm and these people? Like, why am I learning this in my second year of college? I'm like, well, one, you're paying for it, right? I was like, and you have probably professors a little more radical now, right? Like, I'm like, y'all should have never let me in, because now I'm just blowing the whole shit, right? Like, I'm talking about everything, you know what I mean? So, you know, you're able to have these conversations, but you know, I think, and I'm also a parent that's teaching a child that's in kindergarten and in high school.
That's right.
I've been buying little Black books for little boys, you know, Black books for girls. Like, we're having these conversations. We're watching the Netflix on all these Black people. We're having the conversation. So they might not be. We also have to try to beat the system.
Get our own. That's right.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, you know what the system's doing. But when my daughter stands up in class and she can tell her teacher why Malcolm X had an X last name, and the teacher is like, oh my, you know, all like disheveled, I know I'm doing my job. So even as individuals in our households, you have to teach, like, do the unlearning, because in middle school, high school, you're not getting it until you get to college, and most of the people aren't even there.
And parents, a little plug, Sankofa Academy. My wife and I, we do we have an academy where we teach online to parents on how they can, the importance of them utilizing the resources we had. Back in the day, we used to have encyclopedias. Now, if I want to learn about Malcolm, I can go on YouTube and get the speech. I can go to Amos Wilson. I can go to John Henry Clark. Things that our ancestors couldn't have dreamed of. I remember the pen pal programs when I was little. You have to write and wait all this time. I'm planning a conference in Rwanda with my brother right now, where my students here can be interacting. So really getting out of the box and really thinking about ways we can utilize what we have. Can you imagine what Harriet would have done with the internet? You know what I mean? Can you imagine what Pan-Africanism could have been with Marcus Garvey? And he got almost $1 million in the 20s. You know what I mean? Exactly. Done with what we have right now. I think that's a really positive thought, because we have a lot that we can do. So let me just kind of move forward. So what's next, Omo, for you? You know, I know that this is your passion. Is this a film that are you planning on doing more screenings? I know you and I have talked about going into the schools. I think I love these 10-minute movies, because a 10-minute movie followed by an hour conversation could be life-changing. But what's next for this? And have you thought about doing a feature film? You know, a lot of people from our networks do the short films once they get interest. You know, have you thought about doing that? And if you did do a feature film, what kind of things would you like to, where would you like to take it? So that's 3 questions. What's next? Have you thought about a feature? And then if so, what would you like to do with that?
Just to clarify, the feature would be for this specific film, or just in general?
I'm just asking. Okay. Yeah, you can tell me something else if you're working on it.
Okay. And in regards to what's next with this project, I am aiming to do more screenings. hopefully in-person screening soon. I really would love to do that. But even if that's not possible, I definitely really want to spread this film out to like different educators that I know, so that this conversation can be had within high schools, within middle schools, if possible, within colleges, just regardless, just because I feel this is a conversation that needs to be had. And we've been touching on it and all of that, but it just needs to really be had, especially within our generation. And definitely doing film festivals, still applying to those. And so that's pretty much what is lined up for what's next on, like, basically on my plate right now. In regards to a feature, I definitely would love to do a feature. I think it would be it would give me more of a chance to really talk more in depth about certain things, and I want to work on the characters themselves, to develop the characters so that people are able to see, okay, who is Rashad? This guy is coming into the barbershop, talking and just moving like he moves. Why does he move this way? Why is he talking this way? So just really to develop the characters, and who is Areto, like, he's moving the way he moves. He has his idea of Black Americans and he just has his idea of America. He dresses the way he dresses. Why? So really just to bring a background for each character, and to really get people to understand that I touch based on a little of the topics that really go, that are discussed within the discourse between African immigrants and African Americans. So how can I go more in depth about that? So I feel a feature film will actually give me the opportunity to do that, or even a TV show, right? A web series or anything, just so that conversation can be had in more of a layered context. What was your third question again?
What did I ask? I asked, just what? No, I think you answered it. What would you do if you could develop it a little bit longer?
Yeah, gotcha.
I think you answered that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So what's next for you, Drew?
Yo, so it's crazy. Since doing this film, I've been really blessed and fortunate to do a lot of other little film projects here and there, and been doing a lot of like regional theater and things like that. And in February, I was able to do a show here in Brooklyn that was like crowned New York Times Critics Pick. And right before, everything went kind of crazy and stuff like that. But it was beautiful to do another Black-centered show. It was called TJ Loves Sally Forever, written by James Iams, which is a dope Philly playwright. And it was, I've really been just intentional about like just creating more Black art and just making sure that my choices with the things that I'm a part of really push the bar and like allow us to have deeper conversation. So besides that, I'm also an educator as well too. So I work with Urban Word NYC, and I work for this company called Rehabilitation Through the Arts, which I teach both poetry and theater. Rehabilitation Through the Arts is with in the New York prisons. So I teach at Taconic and Bedford Hills Women's Correctional Facilities, and just working on creating we're working on a spoken word play that we're our original goal was to do it for this summer, but of course with Corona and everything like that, that's going to be pushed back. But that's the things that we have in works right now. So yeah,
we'll be looking forward to seeing you, brother. And how about you, Natalia? Where can we find you? You ready to educate a community? How can we? What do you got on your plate? What's next? You gotta. She's muted.
Sorry.
So I've been actually this month started online courses more about Black Yoruba cosmology, African spirituality, identity, how we can reclaim self through Yoruba spiritual practices. And I kind of dabbled in it a little bit at Brooklyn College and stuff, but I kind of wanted to shift the audience and really deal with those that are really interested specifically in this, because I kind of feel like this is our stuff, so I want to teach it to us versus just the masses, right? In like an elective class at a university. So I've been actually teaching online about Yoruba cosmology, and diasporic African spiritual practices, and just how we got here, a lot of history about Yoruba land and that type of thing. So I've been teaching those courses, and more courses are coming. So I've been doing a lot of that and just kind of like holding on to that. I mean, I'm still working on curatorial shows. My last show was in March 1st, but you know, with everything kind of closed up, you know, so I've just been kind of really focusing on the educational part. So I mean, I'm on Instagram. I guess we can put that handle somewhere on there. So those that are interested in registering for the courses and kind of like thinking about just like Blackness and Black identity, Black body politics, those type of things. Because, you know, even though I teach Caribbean studies, obviously, but I do think about like just Pan-Africanism in general and just like what does it mean to be Black, a child of Africa in all of these spaces, and just kind of like reclaiming that through spiritual practices and understanding identity and that type of thing. So that's kind of what my focus has been on and probably will be for some time. And just doing my, you know, that kind of work.
Okay. All right. My phone has died, so I can't see the
Oh,
anymore.
yes, I am. Because I don't think you can see
from the audience.
Can you can't see the chat?
I can see just one. Natalia, mute your mic. That's all I see.
Okay, got you.
But I can't see anything. But I did want to give. So I don't know how we're doing for time. How are we doing?
We have about 30 more minutes.
Okay, so we got time. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I guess moving on from here, if in a nutshell, what do you want people to leave with? You brought up I think we've had an amazing conversation. We've talked about the divisions, the need for us to unify and whatnot. But if there were one or two things that you would want people to walk away from with this film, what would you say those things would be? Simply put.
Oh, one or two?
Yeah. So, you give people too much. A lot of people can't digest too much.
That's true.
2 or 3.
Well, all right. Well, for me, some important pieces that I definitely want people to leave with is really what we've been saying throughout the talk is, educate yourself on other people, on other lives and other ways of living. Don't allow what has been taught to you, what you've been conditioned to believe, don't just allow that to be, just allow yourself to be intentional and allow yourself to actually take the initiative and to move forward with your life in order for you to grow so that you can really be in a better space to connect and adapt with any group. I need people to actually be able to sit there and make a point to literally learn about another culture, to learn that, we live in America. So why do a certain group of people move the way that they move? So how can we do that? Through education, through, movies, through film, through songs. We hear a lot of the Black experience, the Black American experience within our music. And oftentimes we don't pay that much close attention to it because we're just so distracted by the beat and the music video or whatever. But these artists are actually saying something. They're painting a picture of what their everyday life either looked like or what it looks like right now. So I feel that people need to pay more close attention to art and the stories that art is telling and just what's happening in everyday life. Like, don't just allow the stereotypes to just sit with you, say, oh, this is just how people are, they move this way because this is just how they are. No, I feel like we need to really start to push and what's the word I'm looking for? Really break things down to us to understand why a group of people may look or behave a certain way. That's one point I would definitely want the audience to take from. And another point would just be also just to allow ourselves to just be more intentional about just living. Like, allow ourselves to just really breathe and heal, just allow ourselves to learn to love ourselves in a sense where it's like, okay, I'm learning to love myself. So that means I need to learn how to love others and love other people that I come in contact with or I'm in proximity with every single day. So how can I learn about my brother that's standing next to me? How can I learn about my sister that's standing next to me? How can I do that in order to actually gain a better understanding of myself and how I interact with other people, and why do I feel a certain type of way when I'm around a group of people, and how can I break down all my traumatic experiences or anything that, you know, affected my life in a way that it has caused me to shape a certain narrative of myself and how I need to move, and also a certain narrative of people around me, or how I need to move around people, how I need to move when I'm around people. So just to be more very intentional about ourselves and how we look at life and our outlook on life and where we want to go, and also how can we really come together. Yes, we have you know, differences in our countries and all of that, but at the end of the day, we both struggling. So how exactly are we going to come together to really say, okay, my friend over here doesn't have a car, I have a car, we go to the same job. How can I help my friend get to work? This person spends like 2 hours trying to get to work. Can I pick up my friend? If that's my friend, right? That's helping them have an easier life. If we work together, it's going to just be easier for both of us. And I think that's very important to understand, that you know, we have to be together. And also, it's a point, I was listening to Jay-Z Family Feud, and it just reminded me of everything I'm saying right now. Jay-Z mentioned, you know, the song is about, you know, it's not beautiful when the family's feuding, right? Jay-Z mentioned, oh, what's better than one billionaire too? If I'm a billionaire, and I'm trying to think of community, how can I help other people around me be a billionaire? Even Jay-Z said in the same song, he was mentioning about The Godfather, that you're not really rich until like the people around you's rich. So how you getting your brother and your sister and all these other people that surround you to elevate as long as with you? You elevate yourself, now you're looking down on people. How you bringing other people up in your high post or in whatever post you have? So there's just the different things I want people to go away with.
Okay. How about you, Natalia and Drew? Do you got any takeaways? I'm gonna give you guys one takeaway that you think, if the audience out there, some people are probably familiar with these issues, some people probably are, but some may not. This may be their introduction to Pan-African thought. What are one takeaway from each of you that you would hope people would leave with?
I think for me, I hope people take away a willingness to unlearn bias that we've learned in life, right? Just a unwillingness to a willingness to let these biases go and unlearn the things that aren't necessary for where you're trying to go to. I think that's one of the biggest things that I stuck with Rashad, especially from the beginning of the film to the end of the film. You know what I mean? Like, I have animosity, but then at the end of the day, like, this is an experience when I see my homie is having such a reaction to being like patted down by the police and seeing this moment happen to him. It's also compassion. You know what I mean? Like, bro, like, I know this is something you're not understanding, but I hope that you know that, like, this is something that we are accustomed to, and not in a way that I'm bigger than you or better than you, but in a way of like, this is the life here. And so I think for me, just like, you know, be on this journey of letting go things that you don't need to hold on to anymore. So, yeah.
Nice. Natalia, how about you?
So many things. For sure, kind of like tailoring or piggybacking on what Omo said, you know, there's power in numbers, right? And like what that really means in like a unification and being okay with being different. And it's okay that we're different, but we're still the same, right? Because we're all connected to Africa. So phenotypically, we're all the same. Ancestrally, we're all the same. But there's power in numbers. So if we can somehow hold on to understanding that power and how that power can help us build each other up and get us out of these ruts and just kind of help us unlearn things and just kind of like start to deal with the trauma and just be honest and moving forward, that I think we'll have a better place. It's not really so much about us anymore. And I mean, I'm speaking from a mother's standpoint, but about the kids and moving forward and what the generations coming are it's going to look like.
Right.
But that's really thinking about unity and what that can really, really do. And it's a scary place. But, you know, once Mother Africa gets her flowers, like everyone will want to be African.
That's right.
I say that, right? Like the day that Mother Africa really gets her flowers in a real way, all her children will see that too in all corners of the world. So just really thinking about what that means to walk around in this brown skin and whatever variation, whatever accent comes out, whatever language comes out, whoever colonized us, but there's power in numbers and we need to really hold on to that and really think about what that looks like moving forward.
And you know,
the revolution will not be televised.
Okay, Scott.
Now, Europeans understand that because, you know, when's the last time you saw Europeans killing each other in wars? You know what I mean? Like there's all European nations are fighting even like with Russia, it's Cold War, but nothing happens. But there's wars with brown people of color all the time. But there is a understanding that they're a minority in the world that have the majority of the power because of their unification. There's an African proverb that says sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. And, you know, I think that history, you know, we were talking about it earlier. My wife always says that this last 400 or 500 years is 5 minutes on a 24-hour clock. If we can understand the roots of our tree and those connections and all have that connection to the homeland, the richest continent in the world, right? Then you know, I mean, a strong Africa is strong for Africa's children. So that's what Pan-African is, the unification. You had Rolanda. You had asked a question, Rolanda Davis. I finally got my chat open.
Okay.
And I know you had asked about what are those some of those barbershops that are. I would look it up because I know I don't know the names of them. There's one on Fulton in Fort Greene. And I bet you if you look it up, because I read an article about one in the Bronx, I think it was kind of a thing. If you look up barbershops educating Black children, I think you'll find that there are a few, because matter of fact, I even saw that there were doctors that were trying to work with barbershops because, you know, barbers are the therapists. They're the only people that some Black men talk to. So some barbers were partnering with barbershops because they wanted them to get checked out and to have those conversations that brothers won't talk to. I know when Birth of a Nation came out, we had created a curriculum around the book, and it wasn't just a Nat Turner. It was about slavery in the South. It could be used as a workbook, and we were going to do a program at the Medgar Evers College has a program for barbers. I don't know if they still have it. We had planned to do something big so they could get the book and we could inspire them to teach the young brothers while they had them in their chairs. So Rolanda, I don't know what the names of those barbershops are, but I would encourage you to just go online and look, because there were some pretty dynamic stories about some of them. Okay, so I'm going to move on to another question. Go ahead, Omo.
Oh, yeah. Somebody else, just for you to put like in queue. Somebody also asked, does the mama that was in the store, does she represent the connection of Mother Africa? Is she like basically Mother Africa?
You know, so, I mean, I'll let you guys answer. To me, I think we kind of spoke to that. What I loved about that is she saw both of them as her sons.
Right.
She saw both of them. Yeah. She was going to be the one that brought them together. Like, no, you don't talk about him like that. And they both had that respect. You know, we talked about that almost. We showed this in the MPF network. You know, there's something about that motherly spirit. I believe if we had more sister queens running things, we'd have less. We'd be able to work out a lot more of our conflicts. Even if you look at Rwanda has more women in politics than anywhere, and you see how they're able to kind of squash all that Hutu Tutsi beef. There, you know, because there's something about that sister power that a lot of times we're lacking following, in my opinion, these European frameworks. But you know, I took her to be that link. And I had commented about that earlier, why I thought it was better that she be the healer as opposed to the barber, because to me, but I don't know. What are your thoughts about that? What are you guys' thoughts?
So I'll speak on like my intention with making it a woman right? Because originally with the project, it was supposed to be the professor who was a Black man to really dig into the minds of both characters. So first, the role of mothers and women in our lives. I feel like a lot of the time, mothers, whether it be your mother or your partner or your sister or anybody, they're able to really bring out that softer side, the more vulnerable side of the Black man, right? And there's a quote that I actually want to read from I don't know if everybody knows him, but his name is Cheikh Anta Diop. He's a Senegalese scholar, and so he wrote a book called The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality, right? So in the introduction, the translator preface actually, so they spoke about his theory of the Negro African and the European, right? So he says that he believes that there are two kinds of people within the globe. There's two sectors of people within the globe: the Southerners, which is considered the Negro African, and the Aryans, which is considered Caucasians, including Semites, Mongoloids, and American Indians. So his breakdown of each group is, all right, the Aryans are more so focused on patriarchal systems, in which he characterized by the suppression of women and a propensity for war. Also associated with such societies are materialist religion, sin and guilt, xenophobia, the tragic drama, the city-state, individualism, and pessimism. Whereas the Southerners, which is the Negro African, are more so patriarchal. And in this idea, he believes that patriarchal is defined by the women are free and the people are peaceful. There is more of a Diocenian approach to life, religious idealism, and no concept of sin. And with a patriarchal society comes xenophilia, and there's more so of a community rather than individualism. And through that topic, he defines women as, the patriarchal society as being more so focused on nurturing individuals, nurturing the community, nurturing each other, right? So with that concept in mind, I believe that the woman in the store, she was the connector between both men. And she refers to both boys as her son. And even when Ade tried to say, call Rashad and Akata, which is basically what a lot of Nigerians refer to Black Americans as, and which simultaneously also means animal, she tells him that that's not what he is. He's a good child. He's a good son. That's my son. Do not call him that. That's essentially what I made that a very important point to bring that out, where she's able, the woman, to actually see beyond this image that Rashad puts up, this image that Ade puts up. We're able to see beyond that, because we know that there's more to you than this whole costume that you're wearing, that you feel like you have to wear outside in this world, right? We're able to see, like I said, you're able to see the emotions, the softness to the Black man or to Black boys, the ability to feel. And through that, the woman is able to really, I wanted her to be the connector between the two, because I believe that women are able to infiltrate into spaces within the Black man that other Black men are not able to enter into, because of these walls of egos and pride, and I'm not going to allow another Black man to be better than me or to be above me or anything of that sort, that whole ideology. So the woman definitely played that role in connecting the two, and to also be the connector of Africa, where to both of them, even though they both don't believe it, like that the other's connected to Africa in a sense, but to both of them, Africa is their connection to their Blackness. And even though, the Nigerian, he feels like the American, you don't know anything about Africa. You're born and raised here. What do you know about Africa, the whole continent? You haven't been not one place in Africa, but yet you're ready to go there. So that whole idea is like, to break that down. Like, even there's another side of other people accepting of the Black American that wants to go back home, even if other people give them pushback, whereas like, oh, you don't know about this place, but you want to go here. You're living good here. Why would you want to go somewhere like Africa if you have privilege here, you're living here in abundance? So I think the mother, well, not I think, but definitely the mother was the connector to really bring all the pieces together and really to show the other side of, Black men in general. Like, we're able to we soften up when it comes to our mother. They soften up when it comes to their mothers. And we just generally soften up when it comes to, people that we love and women that we love. Like, when a Black man loves a woman or their partner, whether it be their mother or their partner, they soften up. They soften up. And to me, all the Black men that's watching this, is beautiful. Keep doing it. Please don't stop.
Almost somebody had wrote in, and I thought this was really insightful, and thank you for sharing this. It said, I love the opening was, you hear about Shorty who got shot, who got last night, and then it ended with welcome to America. I thought that was kind of dope. That was definitely
Denzel.
But I also you brought up Cheikh Anta Diop. If you're listening to this, watching this, one of our great historians, Senegalese brother, he has a concept called the two cradle theory, and I encourage you just to check that brother out, because it really explains the European mindset and how it conquered, and versus the African mindset and the indigenous mindset. And it really, I teach that in my slavery class, and it really helped me to understand, what happened to us. And really want to encourage. I see you, Natalia, shaking your head, because I know you know about that, brother. One of the things I noticed, and we also talked about it before this, Omo, just the fact that you said when you're an immigrant, how you almost don't feel like you're successful when you're an African immigrant until you're successful here. You could have a great life, but there's something psychologically in our conditioning that says, and when you were talking about it, I was saying, wow, that sounds like African Americans. We are the only group that associates making it with leaving the hood. Here in New York, you got Italy, you got Chinatown, you got Germantown, you got all these, but when it's the Black neighborhood, it's the hood. Why is it that everybody else has these cultural communities that they can claim, and the dollar can bounce there, and it really becomes their fence and their protection and their value, their most prized kind of asset and resource as a community? But when it comes to us, whether it be on the continent, in the Caribbean, or even in Bed-Stuy, right, we feel like we have to leave and participate in the broader illusion of the American dream than building our own. Do you want to speak to that really quick? And Natalia, you might want to too, being that you really understand this immigrant experience. Would you like to start?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so just based off of my own observations, I feel like we just been taught to believe that our own is just not good enough. Like, we've been taught to just believe, oh, if we don't make it out of our own neighborhoods that we grew up with, because it's so poverty stricken, we didn't really make it anywhere. And I remember during our conversation, you mentioned to me that there was a brother who owned a barbershop, and he was the only one that had a Black, his own business, but he didn't go to school, and he was still living in the hood, right? But you said that he felt like he didn't really feel as if he made it because he wasn't outside of the hood.
Right.
And
meanwhile, he had the only one in the place where we could congregate and have this conversation.
Right. Exactly. So it's just the whole internalization of not really valuing our own and feeling like, okay, if we make it to, other people's land or a white person's land, and we make it on white people's land, we start living luxury, then that's really when we made it in life. Versus like, oh, you doing good, you living comfortable in your home, and you have your own business, and it may not really be what we see on the media, flashy cars, a whole bunch of houses, big houses, but you're living good, like you're comfortable. And this whole idea of excess, we love excess so much. Like, we want to have so much things, more than we can really, we can even really need. We don't need 18 cars. we want 18 cars because we see 18 cars. Like, oh, white people got 18 cars, or we see rappers and musicians on the media, oh, they have 18 cars. So now I have to get 18 cars, right? So, and then the whole idea that it's just not enough just to have two. It's not enough to just have one, because we have to just overdo, because we've been stuck in a place where we ain't have nothing.
Deficit.
We never had anything. So now we gotta OD, because it's the same thing like when we talk about when Black people get their checks, taxes. What are some of the first things people do? Go buy a car, go splurging on like clothes and stuff like that. But it comes from the mindset of poverty and the fact that, wow, we got this big lump sum of money. Now, before it goes, I have to OD, have to like go and splurge to make sure I look good, because it's all about the appearance, right? It's not about what you doing internally. It's all about the appearance. So that whole idea is like, oh, because I see other people doing it, or I see people that are quote unquote the rulers of the world, that's what they're doing. That's what I need to do in order to prove that that's what I am, that I have money, to prove that I have money. And versus like, oh, I actually have money, I don't need to do this. It's all the mindset of, oh, I'm proving this, that, and a third to my peers, or I'm proving this, that, and a third to other people that, okay, if I make it in America, then I'm good. If I make it out the hood, then I'm really good. I'm not living with them. Those are the lower class Black Americans. Those are lower class immigrants or whatever. I'm outside of that box. I'm outside of that spectrum now. So I don't have to deal with that. I'm above.
And
so I think yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm just letting you. I want to give you a time check. We got 1 minute.
Oh yeah. Oh wow, that's crazy. Okay, yeah.
Because I had this, and I wanted to ask you this. I had to ask you this. I hate to cut it off because I wanted to hear what others had to say. But I just wanted to know, because you're an HBCU graduate.
Yes.
HBCU. So I want you to tell, because there are a lot of young people and thinking about what schools they want to go to, and also thinking about deficits. How we don't believe that the HBCU is anywhere as good as the European institutions because we don't know our assets. How did going to an HBCU, going through a Pan-African centered network, MPF, how did that educational experience shape Omo and inspire her to want to do something a little bit different than a lot of the other filmmakers we see your age and in your demographic?
Right. Just for everybody that doesn't know what an HBCU is, that's a historically Black college and university. Those are historically Black colleges and university within America. So going to HBCU, I went to A&T, Aggie Pride all day. I went to A&T, and
wow,
it was different. It was definitely different, and being down south, it was also different as well. And being able to really see the range of Blackness. Like, you have people coming from Sudan, from Kenya, from Alabama, from Georgia, from New York, and you just see the range of Blackness. You just see Black people just being. It's like a utopia of Blackness. And it's so beautiful to me because I was introduced to such beautiful professors. Like, going to HBCU was literally the first time I've ever had majority of my professors, they were Black.
Yep, say that.
All the schools that I went to, they were taught by, white people, Asian people. I had like probably 3 Black teachers within my my K-12 years. But when I went to A&T, I started to see, oh wow, these are beautiful minds, and they're in Black bodies, and they're teaching me. And it's like you're being taught by your auntie, or you're being taught by your uncles, because that relationship is going to be different. Because they're able to get you to think, okay, you a Black individual living in this world. How can you actually, what difference are you going to make? And how can you really talk to the Black experience? And all the classes that we did, that I took personally, it was more so focused about that Black experience and how to really break that down, whether it's historical, through literature, or just generally, like, through contemporary society. And the beauty about HBCU is just the way that they create our minds, or help us reform our minds, and help us to really break down the Eurocentric teachings that we had from like K through 12.
Mhm.
Majority of us, you know, had Eurocentric teachings through from K to 12. So they're able to really help us relearn a whole bunch of different things about Black people.
Mhm.
And we're able to see it more so because literally now we're dealing with people from all over the world. And it's like, oh, wait, hold on. You're from Alabama and you went through this too? Wow, I'm from New York and I went through this too. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. You went to Kenya and you went through this too? Oh wow, I have a similar story. So now you're able to see the range of Blackness, and it's not just, oh, you from the ghetto. Like, it's not just that. You have upper class Black kids that come to A&T, and you have people that are from lower income neighborhoods. You see that dynamic, and we're all able to really come together and literally interact with each other in a sense where it's like, oh, we don't know who's on financial aid and who's not. We just know that we all in the same space and we all really trying to get an education. And we're doing that in a sense where it's like, oh, it's just solely surrounding Blackness. And it's crazy because I did a documentary back in my last year, in my senior year, that talks about the essence of HBCUs. And just how the role that they played within Black America and just America period, and just the role that they played throughout the whole globe. And I was able to really sit down with different generations. I sat down with people that graduated from A&T in 1979, and people that graduated from A&T in 1992. So I was able to really get that whole range of what the role HBCUs have played within the world, and
legacy.
I was able to see the different stories, you know, of A&T itself, like having to deal with, you know, massacres and having to deal with just riots because of the white oppression that they don't want Black people to elevate themselves. There was something that happened in 1979, which we often hear about in the, you know, A&T history, where the Dudley A&T revolt, and Dudley is a high school, and then there was a young gentleman named he's now a doctor, he used to work at A&T, but Dr. Claude Barnes, and he was appointed as the president of the student body at Dudley, and they wasn't allowing him to really take the presidency because of who he was associated with, which were Black Panthers and, you know, Black militants and everything. So he came to A&T, and they ended up this big old riot, well, not riot, but this war between National Guards and students. These are students. They're like 18, 19, 20-year-olds fighting National Guards with big old tanks. You could see footage of students, kids, literally crawling on the floor trying to get somewhere safe. So that history that's there is what shapes, you know, my storytelling, being able to, you know, tell stories that you know, highlight history, those kind of things that have happened in history, where it's like, okay, this and the third has happened to get us to where we are. People fought for immigrants to come to this country. People fought for us to even vote, and we still fighting. So the whole point is like the HBCU really just watered what was already inside of me, like, oh yeah, it's Black stories, Black experience all day, Black stories all day. If it's not about Blackness, I'm not talking about it. I'm not doing it. And I'm able to do that because that's just what I chose to do. I dedicated my life to that, and that's what's going to happen, and nobody's really going to stop me from doing that. So HBCU, if you want to go to school and if you want a true experience, you better go to HBCU. No offense to people that went to like predominantly white institutes, and it's crazy because I went to school in New York too. So my experience was definitely different from being a commuter in New York and being around a whole bunch of different people, and actually solely just being about predominantly Black individuals in the educational space. And when people say that Black people are not trying to uplift themselves and move forward in life and educate themselves, is all a lie. Yeah. Because you can go to HBCUs and you're going to see a whole bunch of students that's just graduated, and not just in HBCUs. You see a whole bunch of students that's graduated that's really trying to educate themselves and get themselves to a higher elevation that their parents they weren't able to get to. So HBCUs all day, HBCU pride. I'm just so happy.
Commercial, donate.
Well, you better sell it.
Donate because they underfunded. They're underfunded.
They are.
So we're at 8:07 now.
Right.
But I just want to thank you guys. First of all, I want to thank you, Omo, for this beautiful film. I think the conversation. I thank you, Natalia and Drew, for the conversation, and from the comments, I can see people really appreciated it. This is a powerful conversation that we need to keep moving, and I just thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. Marcus Garvey, one of my heroes, he says, "The people without knowledge of their history are like trees with no roots." And if you're listening, you know it's no coincidence that those of us who came here in chains, those of us who were made into 3/5 human, those of us who have endured some of the most horrific conditions known to mankind and don't know our names, just so happen to be the most disempowered. So in my mind, this conversation was about the importance of us educating us about our roots, because in our roots, we see our connection. And as Marcus Garvey said, what Africans have done, Africans can do. So I thank you, and I'm excited. I am invested in your career, as I've been for the last 4 years. And if I can ever be a resource to you, Omo, I will do so. You make me very proud. And I'm going to be on the lookout for you, Drew, because I see you doing your thing. You did a great job. And Natalia, maybe you and I can do some work together, because it looks like you are doing similar work. So blessings to you all. And, you know, thank you. Thank you guys for being with us. That 2 hours went quick.
It did.
Right.
It did,
It
yo.
definitely did. But I thank you all, honestly, for partaking and being a part, and just all that y'all done. Just even, just saying yes. That's that yes went a long way. So I really appreciate y'all. And thank you, Brian, for everything.
You already
know. Drew.
Thank you.
I love you too, bro.
Love you,
Natalia.
And
y'all know what time it is. Y'all know what time it is.
Time it
All right,
is.
y'all. Love.
Right.
Peace. Thank you guys out there. Thank you for being with us. Until next
All
time.
right, take care. Thank you all for the viewers and listeners.
Yes. Later.